All right, do we have a doozy today? The wealthiest man in the world, the wealthiest man in history, Elon Musk, has just been caught, potentially, stacking ridiculous sums of Bitcoin. And this is massive because this is breaking right now on Twitter, but it's massive for more than one reason. We're going to zoom out and show you the big picture about what Elon Musk knows about what's coming financially for the US and financially for Bitcoin, and how it could be soaring into the hundreds of thousands, $350,000 to $450,000 per coin, and also what that means for the rest of crypto. And I want to start here with a little bit of context for you, because weirdly enough, we're back in 2020, we've time traveled, and there's a conversation between the official Bitcoin account, J.K. Rowling, and Elon Musk. But this is very important to start here, because Bitcoin's official account tweeted out, "Wizards still need to trust Gringotts Bank. Bitcoin fixes this," meaning if you don't want to rely on banks, even in the wizarding world, you still need Bitcoin. J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter, of course, says, "I don't think I trust this." And she said, "People are now explaining Bitcoin to me. Honestly, blah, 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 collectibles, My Little Pony, blah, 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 computers, blah, 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 crypto sounds creepy, blah, 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 understand the risk. I don't though." This is back in 2020. I mean, you can summarize this tweet by, "I don't want to touch Bitcoin. It sounds like a scam." That's what J.K. Rowling is saying. And then, none other than Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, pops his head into the room and says, although massive currency issuance by government central banks is making Bitcoin, internet ghost money, he used to call it ghost money, look solid by comparison. So he's saying, yeah, I can understand and empathize with your thoughts around Bitcoin, JK, but compared to cash, compared to US dollars, it looks solid in comparison. It looks like a good alternative. This is where he's sat. And what he's referring to, if you don't understand, is the insane printing of US dollars in every single currency around the world, diluting its value out of holders. And this is the M2 money supply. And you can see how many trillions of dollars is getting printed every year. But you don't really care how much is getting printed. What we care about is the devaluation of our hard-earned savings versus the things we're trying to buy. The houses, the cars, the travel, everything in life seems to be getting more expensive. And it is because the money supply is being diluted at 12 to 13% every single year. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But you can see we've lost 99% of value in the US dollar in the last 100 years. And this tweet puts it perfectly. Imagine working 9 to 5 for 50 years, then the Fed, the government, the US government, prints 40% of the total money supply and inflates away 20 years of your work/life. Guys, when they print money, they're stealing your energy. Elon Musk knows this, and also Michael Saylor knows this, and they actually had a conversation as well. Elon Musk says, what are your thoughts about probable inflation rate over the next few years? Talking about how much money is the US going to be printing? How much money are banks going to be creating through fractional reserve banking? Michael Saylor says, US dollar consumer inflation will continue near all-time highs, and asset inflation, things like Bitcoin, things like real estate, will run at double the rate of consumer inflation. Weaker currencies will collapse, and the flight of capital from cash, debt, and value stocks to scarce property like Bitcoin will intensify. Remember, this is still back in 2022, because I'm going to show you how Elon Musk shifted his mindset around what Bitcoin is and how powerful it can be. He says, it's not entirely unpredictable you would reach that conclusion. Again, back in 2020, back in 2022, Elon is pro-Bitcoin, but he's not all in like someone like Michael Saylor. And he actually says, as a general principle, for those looking for advice in this thread, how to escape this crazy monetary inflation, it is generally better to own physical things like a home, so he's saying real estate, or stock in companies you think make good products, than it is dollars when inflation is high. Don't hold cash, hold stock in your favorite companies, and hold real estate, he's saying. But he's, again, not anti-crypto, not anti-Bitcoin. He is pro that, but he's not a Bitcoin maxi and all-in like Michael Saylor. He says, I still own and won't sell my Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Doge. Now, Michael Saylor actually does respond one more time about how Bitcoin is the scarcest and best asset to invest in, and this was back in 2022 when the price was something like $16,000, so he hasn't been wrong so far, but Elon Musk doesn't reply. Now, I must say, before we get into his recent potential purchases, even though he seems pretty neutral / slightly positive on Bitcoin, a lot of people don't know this. Tesla, Elon Musk's company, holds the 7th most amount of Bitcoin compared to any other company in the world. They hold over 11,000 Bitcoin, which, I mean, he has to be pro-Bitcoin if one of his companies is holding so much of it. But let's fast forward now to 2024. Trump goes into office, and what Elon did to Twitter, cut 75% of their expenses, 75% of their employees, and made Twitter a way better product, a way more profitable product without 75% of the bloat. He wants to do that for Donald Trump, for the United States, saving taxpayers billions, if not trillions of dollars every single year. This was an awesome intention. And he went out, and this is back in 2025, March 4, when he was still on the Department of Government Efficiency team. He said they saved $80 million in ridiculous spending eliminated. In this one case, I think they saved about $500 billion, I believe, overall. And, he was celebrating the wins because this goes back into the pockets of people like me and you. However, things recently went really sour. And this is the start, I believe, of Elon Musk's Bitcoin arc. He says, it is obvious with the insane spending of this new bill in the US, which is coming in under Trump, which increases the debt ceiling by a record $5 trillion US dollars, that we live in a one-party country. The Porky Pig Party. Greedy pigs, basically saying. Time for a new political party that actually cares about the people. He actually wants to create his own political party, but bigger news than that is he is no longer in the Department of Government Efficiency, and it looks like the government doesn't want to be so efficient after all, which is terrible news for the everyday person. But if you're invested in the right assets, honestly, you want to see them diluting their economy as much as possible, because it falls into the hands of people who are holding the right assets, such as the Bitcoiners. Because the more the government prints, you can see this is Colin Talks Crypto, who talks about the global M2, which is the total amount of money that exists in the world, and it goes up trillions of dollars every single year. When you plot it against a hard asset, an asset you cannot create more of, you'll see that that hard asset like Bitcoin literally will soak up this value like a sponge. And you can see this is plotted here by Colin Talks Crypto against the money supply, and it almost matches 1-to-1, something like an 85% match since late 2024. And you can see also here, if you zoom in on this graph, it's projected that Bitcoin's going to go to $180,000 plus in a very short amount of time, the next 2 to 3 months. And Elon Musk recognizes that the dollar is most likely going to continue to fail. We saw it's already lost 99% of its value. It's probably going to lose another 99% of its value over the next couple of decades. He says, when fiat currency has negative real interest, only a fool wouldn't look elsewhere. Now, where else can you look? Because this is, I've made this graphic myself actually with the nice colors, but it's a original Michael Saylor data and stats that I've transcribed into this nice colored graph for you. Monetary inflation, the rate that they're printing money, is here. And almost every other area where you put your money into assets is going to be going backwards in life. Everything's going to get more expensive compared to the money and the capital that you're holding. If you pick the right growth stocks, you're going to do well. But the overwhelming sign here is Bitcoin by far is the best performing asset historically. And Michael Saylor's thesis, and potentially Elon Musk is coming around to this right now, is that Bitcoin is the best inflation hedge that you could possibly have. And it's kind of interesting because Elon was very vocal about crypto, very vocal about Doge. I'm going to show you an example of how he pumped that Doge chart tens of billions of dollars, and he could be doing it again. He hasn't talked about Bitcoin. He did once here, but only talking about the encryption of Bitcoin in June 2nd. He hasn't spoken about it since 2022. And then he only spoke about it twice there. And it's just been really quiet for such a monumental breakthrough technology, one that his company owns 11,000 Bitcoin for. So recently, when someone pointed out, I'll read this to you right here, Vanderlei BTC Industries. Has anyone noticed how Elon Musk talks a lot about things like overspending and debt and bad government decisions in general, but has completely stopped talking about Bitcoin, the most sane path out of this mess? It doesn't add up. What is he hiding? Well, Elon Musk apparently interacted with this tweet for the first time, breaking his silence on Bitcoin in 2 years. Apparently, he liked an X post. I'm going to show you evidence that he did that says he's secretly buying Bitcoin. The world's richest man is secretly buying Bitcoin. Here is the screenshot. However, you've had people say this is a fake screenshot because there is no verified tick. So the guy who actually replied to the comment, so it's this guy here, CoinJoined Chris. He says, maybe Elon is stacking quietly. He's buying Bitcoin quietly without letting anybody know. And this was the comment that Elon liked. And if you go to this video right here, you can see CoinJoin goes through his comment. It's only got 13 likes. One of them happens to be Elon Musk. He scrolls down and he shows you that it is the verified real Elon Musk that liked this tweet. And why this is so important. Not only does he know what is coming from Bitcoin and the M2 money supply and the US turning on that extra $5 trillion that's going to eventually be soaked up into the price of Bitcoin, but he knows his own power. He's the biggest influencer in the world. Really terrible way to describe him, but he really is. Each one of his tweets get tens of millions of views, and he can move prices, potentially even the Bitcoin price, by billions of dollars if people were to know. And I'll show you this example. This is a massive take up in Bitcoin, going from about a 5 billion market cap to a $40 billion market cap in the last cycle. What made this inflection point go absolutely crazy? Well, it was this one tweet by Elon Musk. If you get the timestamps, you will see it precisely yourself. He says Doge barking at the moon in 2021, mentions the Doge token this is very important, guys. If you're trading Bitcoin, if you're trading any altcoin out there in the crypto market, you need strong market sentiment and people being greedy on the fear and greed index. You can see this is at 75, but it's come off months of being in the 80s and 90s for an influencer to be able to pump a token the 10x like Elon Musk did. Because I'll show you the example here. In 2022, after Doge had that massive pump and it reached a $94 billion market cap, it faded out, lost about 90% of its value. And then Elon Musk once again tweeted about Doge in a tweet, but in a cold market, in a market there was a lot of fear out there. And this tiny bump right there was the only effect that Elon had. But what's important is that Elon knows that all this money supply is going to be absorbed into the harder assets. And there's going to be trillions of dollars, a $10 trillion tidal wave from people printing new money and rotating assets into higher performing assets down the risk curve like crypto. And we need to be positioned. This is what we do on the channel. We like to position ourselves down the risk curve so that we can catch this money when it comes. We study the best traders and the biggest influencers in the world and see where they're putting their money so that we can copy trade them and get the same results as literally the best people in the world. If that sounds like something you'd like to do, hit that like button below, hit that subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.